Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. This is Terrifying Tuesday, where we talk about all things horror. And today we're going to be talking about a little prequel to a movie that you didn't know was coming. And that is Pet Sematary Bloodlines. We're going to talk about the plot and what to expect. And then I'll tell you what I think about this movie as to whether I'm excited or not, and how it could work. So let's jump right into it. Alright, so this sequel kind of came out of nowhere, but it's supposed to air on Paramount Plus exclusively and not get a theatrical run, which is always kind of one of those red flags for a lot of fans, that they didn't have faith in the movie to come to the theater. Although in the time of streaming, I'm finding that that's becoming a little less important as to whether it got a theatrical run. But we want to talk about this movie because it's coming around a lot quicker than we expect, with it coming to Paramount Plus on October 6th of this year. Now, that being said, the plot summary for this movie says that in 1969, a young Jed Crandall, who you might remember if you have seen the original Pet Sematary or read the book, is the old man neighbor of the characters, who kind of gives them the warning that the pet cemetery is not to be trusted. Well, this movie takes place in 1969 with him learning of the pet cemetery and kind of getting into why he knows so much about it, and maybe even why he kind of feels he has to warn others. He kind of tells them a story in the original movie and in the book of people bringing their loved ones back to life in the pet cemetery and how sometimes dead is better. And that's kind of the whole thing. You can't think of the movie without that line, sometimes dead is better. And we kind of get to know in this movie apparently why that is, as if the stories that he tells you weren't enough. Now, it actually tells the history that will connect him forever to that place. And I don't know. This is how I feel about it. This wasn't a sequel that I absolutely feel we needed. However, if it's done right, a lot of the Pet Sematary movies haven't been that great. The remake of the Pet Sematary movie really left a lot to be desired. It had some elements that I did enjoy, but very far and few between, if I'm being honest. And with the sequels to the Pet Sematary, I've talked to some people that actually like Pet Sematary 2 better than they like Pet Sematary 1. For me, I always have a soft spot for the original Pet Sematary, and if this does elaborate on the plot, maybe even on the story that Jed tells the doctor, if they do go that route, it doesn't have to be amazing. It just has to add to the lore of the story. They talked about the Pet Sematary remake that came out, kind of reimagining the Pet Sematary universe. And that wouldn't have been that bad if the movie had stayed a little bit more true to the original source material. If this movie could come out and sort of give us a backstory that does fit with the original source material, and then still lead us to something where we could go forward, then I think we might be able to have something that's worth our time, because they've been trying to make the Pet Sematary universe into its own thing for a while. And the sequel, of course, as I said, there's some people that like part 2 better than part 1, but I haven't really talked to anyone who liked the reboot. And then they were talking at one point even about a TV show or something like that about it. And none of this stuff has ever come to fruition with this movie. And I think the reason is that while it has a lore, how far back do you go to explore this? I almost don't want them to go to 1969 like they are, but rather go all the way back in time. Go back to a point when the burial ground was first made. Find out how that ground got soiled. Now, if they have a flashback to that in this movie and they show us that particular event, then perhaps this movie would add something that we could go forward from and make for a really good movie overall. Like I said, it doesn't have to be great, but if it does add to the lore and gives us something entertaining that we could move on from, that we could have a sequel to the Pet Sematary universe that isn't from the original novel, that everyone kind of agrees is pretty cool, then I think it's a win-win situation. But for me, having that whole flashback with the original part of it, finding out the origin of the Pet Sematary itself, is something that I find far more interesting than the plot they've given us. But then again, we could get into this movie and it could be incredibly amazing. It could actually have a big part of it telling us that original story. Who's to say that it doesn't play into the events of the story? I think writing is everything in terms of telling a story. If you could spin the story in a way that tells people what they need to know about the past and brings them into the future and gives them something that they can move on from, then that's going to always work. That's going to be something that is worth our time. So make sure you're leaving us a comment in the comment box below, letting us know what you think. Are you excited about this movie or not? We want to hear from you. Make sure you share this video with all of your friends so they can be a part of the conversation as well. Then don't forget to hit that like button as hard as you can. It helps the channel and we appreciate it. Miko says we need more subscribers and you don't want to disappoint Miko. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell while you're down there so you don't miss a single video we do. And then friends, at the end of the day, I know it, you know it, and Miko knows it. Fandom is family.